I was searching for proof that I wasn't losing my mind, but instead, I found proof that I was being hunted. There, on my phone screen at 2:39 a.m., was a video of me screaming in terror at a fake rat in my bed. It had 4.2 million views. The caption read, "Grandma's reaction is priceless." I realized with a sick feeling that the account belonged to my own granddaughter. She wasn't just living with me. She was filming my torture for content. And as I scrolled, I realized they weren't just humiliating me for likes. They were documenting my decline to prepare for something much worse. It wasn't a photo I'd shared because I wasn't even on social media. But there I was, frozen in a moment of terror, hands clutching my chest, my mouth agape in a perfect O. Above the image, in that bold white font the kids used, it read, "Grandma's reaction when she found the fake rat in her bed," then laughing emoji and skull emoji. 4.2 million views. My hands went numb as I read the username, @SloanSavage. When I tapped it, the profile picture loaded slowly, agonizingly slowly, like the internet itself was trying to warn me to stop looking. But I couldn't stop, and when the image finally appeared, my breath caught in my throat. That face. I knew that face. The account belonged to someone living in this house, someone who had been watching me, filming me, and studying my routines, someone who knew exactly when I'd be most vulnerable. It was my granddaughter, Sloan, 17 years old and living in the room right next to mine in what used to be my sewing space, before Kent and Bianca said she'd had some trouble at her old school and needed a fresh start. I scrolled down, video after video, me jumping at air horns, me slipping on something slick they'd put on the kitchen floor. I'd bruised my hip that day, thinking I was just clumsy. Me opening the refrigerator to find everything rearranged, standing there confused while Sloan giggled behind the camera. The comments made my stomach turn. Old people are literally toddlers. I can't stop laughing. She's so dumb, it's hilarious. This is elder abuse. Chill, Karen, it's just a prank. 2.3 million followers. Sloan had 2.3 million people watching me be humiliated, and I hadn't known any of it existed. I sat up in bed, the phone trembling in my grip. How many of these were there? I kept scrolling. Weeks of content. Months. Me crying over a lost photo album that had been hidden in Sloan's closet. Me frantically searching for my reading glasses that were taped under the coffee table. Me screaming when the shower water turned ice cold mid-rinse. Every accident, every moment of confusion, and every private humiliation had been filmed, edited, and posted for millions to mock. The bedroom door creaked open. I jumped, nearly dropping the phone. Sloan stood in my doorway, backlit by the hallway nightlight. Her sugar-sweet voice asked if I was okay, saying she'd heard me moving around. I stared at her, really looked at her for the first time in months. She was 17, but looked older. Sharp cheekbones, dark hair pulled back severely, and eyes that didn't match her smile. I told her I was fine, that I just couldn't sleep. She moved closer, and I instinctively angled the phone away, but she'd already seen it. Her smile widened as she told me I'd found her TikTok, that I was famous, and that everyone loved me. She sat on the edge of my bed, took my phone before I could stop her, and started scrolling with the ease of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. She pointed to view counts like they were achievements. 6.7 million on one video, she said. The spider prank was her favorite. My face was priceless, she said. The spider. I remembered that. 3 weeks ago, a massive fake tarantula was in my bathroom sink. I'd screamed so hard I'd pulled something in my throat and couldn't talk right for days. I remembered seeing Bianca standing in the doorway that day, holding her phone up. When I asked her what she was doing, she had smiled and said, "Just texting Kent, Mom. Relax." She had lied. She had been framing the shot. "Don't look like that," Sloan said now, tapping the screen of my phone. "We edited it. See, I blurred out your nightgown so it wasn't inappropriate. And I deleted the really mean comments. It's all in good fun." Good fun. 4 million people watching me suffer was good fun. When I asked if Kent and Bianca knew, she acted surprised I'd even question it. Of course they knew. They loved it. Kent said it was helping her develop job skills. Content creation is a real career now, she said dismissively, unlike your generation when we had to work in factories or whatever. She told me I should be proud because most grandmas just sat around doing nothing, but I was helping her build her future. She left, closing the door softly behind her. I sat in the darkness, phone burning in my hand, and felt something crack inside my chest. Not my heart. That was still beating, hard and angry. Something else. Some wall I'd built between what I suspected and what I knew. It hit me like a wave. My granddaughter was torturing me for content. The realization was like a sudden awakening, a jolt of understanding that pierced through the fog of confusion. And my son, who I'd raised alone after his father died, who I'd worked multiple shifts to put through college, thought it was helping her career. I pulled up the TikTok account again and forced myself to scroll back to the beginning, to the very first video posted 7 months ago, right after Sloan moved in. The caption made my blood run cold. Teaching Grandma how to use a smartphone. This is gonna be good. Then followed by a smiling devil emoji. The video showed me unpacking boxes in what used to be my sewing room. I remembered that day, remembered Sloan offering to help me set up my new phone, and remembered thinking how sweet she was being. But watching it now, I could see her angling the camera to catch my most confused expressions, zooming in when my hands were shaking while trying to navigate the settings, and adding cartoon effects to make me look helpless. It was a series. I was a series. 23 episodes. 23 times my granddaughter had turned my pain into content. Monetized. Sponsored. There was even a link in her bio to an Amazon storefront where people could buy the products she used to torment me. The sun was rising by the time I finished watching every video, and my throat was raw from silent crying. Kent found me in the kitchen at 7, still in my nightgown and staring at nothing while he poured himself coffee like this was just another ordinary morning. I asked if he knew Sloan had been posting videos of me online, and the way his face lit up, genuinely lit up with pride, made me want to scream. Oh yeah, those are hilarious. Bianca showed me last month. That was it. Like my humiliation was a sitcom he'd been binge watching. I stared at my son, 42 years old, 6 feet tall, with his father's eyes, and tried to find the boy I'd raised in there somewhere. But all I could see was a stranger. I told him about the spider prank, how I'd screamed so hard I couldn't swallow right for a week, and he rolled his eyes like I was being dramatic about a paper cut. He said Sloan was talented, that she had a real gift for content creation, and that I should be supporting her instead of complaining. Then he checked his phone, already losing interest in me, and mentioned that he and Bianca had been meaning to talk to me about something. About what? Sloan's account is really taking off. She needs consistent content. Just keep being yourself. Let her film sometimes. The way he said it, so casual, so entitled, made my skin crawl, like I was a prop in my own life. But what terrified me most was what he didn't say, the words he swallowed behind that fake smile. There was something else going on here, something darker than pranks and TikTok fame. He walked out. Through the kitchen window, I could see the morning fog rolling in thick off the Potomac. Kent's car was parked in the driveway, and I noticed something I'd never paid attention to before. The back seat was full of boxes, packed like he was preparing for a move or preparing to make someone else move. The sight of those boxes made my chest tighten because I realized with sudden horrifying clarity that they'd been planning this for a while. And then I saw her, Sloan, standing at the edge of the tree line where our property backed up to the old Civil War trail. She was just standing there in the mist, phone in hand, filming something. Filming me. Even through the window, even with the fog between us, I could see the red recording light glowing, and I understood that there was no safe place in this house. I stood in the kitchen in my son's house that I cleaned every day, and felt the world tilt sideways, rent-free, as if the money I'd given him for his down payment didn't count, as if raising him alone didn't count. I pulled out my phone and opened TikTok again. Sloan had posted a new video an hour ago. Me, in the kitchen just now, talking to Kent. The audio was edited to make me sound whiny and confused. The caption, "When Grandma gets mad about going viral, she doesn't understand the internet is forever." 1.2 million views already. My hand started shaking so violently that the phone nearly slipped from my grip. But I felt something rising up inside me, hot and sharp and furious. It wasn't despair. It wasn't defeat. It was rage. And it forged me into something harder. If the internet was forever, then everyone would see what was really happening here. But first, I needed to understand exactly how deep this went. I went back to my room and locked the door. I looked at the followers, the comments, and the patterns. That's when I noticed them, dozens of comments from the same few accounts. This is wholesome content. Older adults need excitement. I clicked on one profile, which led to a website titled TikTok Growth Strategies, Learn How to Monetize Family Content. My stomach dropped. Sloan wasn't just filming me for fun. She was following a business model. But there was something else nagging at me. A small detail my nurse's brain had noticed, but my exhausted mind had dismissed. I opened my medication organizer, the one I kept in my nightstand drawer. Tuesday's slot was empty. That was strange. Today was Saturday. Wednesday, empty. Thursday, empty. Friday, empty. 4 days of medication, gone, but I remembered taking them. I had a clear memory of every morning, reaching for the organizer, shaking the pill into my palm, and swallowing it with water. My hands started shaking as I tipped the organizer over, and pills scattered across the floor. Except they didn't sound like pills when they hit the hardwood. They sounded lighter, hollow. I picked one up and held it to the light, and what I saw made the room start spinning around me. It was candy. A tic-tac, the white ones, filed down slightly to match the shape of my prescription blood pressure medication. Someone had gone through my medication, pill by pill, day by day, and replaced them with mints. Someone had been systematically depriving me of the medication that kept me alive. The bedroom door handle turned. I hadn't locked it after Sloan left. The door swung open slowly, and Bianca stood there with a glass of water in one hand and a small paper cup in the other. She smiled at me, that same warm smile she'd been giving me for months. "I thought you might forget," she said, stepping into the room. "You've been forgetting a lot lately, haven't you, Diana?" The way she said my name made my skin crawl. I looked at the pills in her hand, then at the tic-tacs scattered across my floor, and realized she didn't know I'd discovered the switch. She was still playing the concerned daughter-in-law, still performing care while she poisoned me. Blood pressure medication isn't something you stop taking. Missing it for days could cause a stroke. I grabbed my phone and started to dial 911, then stopped. If I called an ambulance, Sloan would film it. Grandma's dramatic 911 call over nothing, and everyone would believe her. They weren't just humiliating me anymore. They were trying to kill me. I didn't take the fake pills that morning. I flushed them down the toilet, got dressed with hands that wouldn't stop shaking, and drove to the pharmacy. The drive should have taken 10 minutes, but I kept checking my rearview mirror because a dark Corolla seemed to be following me, staying exactly 3 car lengths behind. When I pulled into the pharmacy parking lot, the Corolla drove past slowly, and I caught a glimpse of the driver. Young, female, phone mounted on the dashboard. Recording. Inside, the pharmacist Keisha frowned at her computer. "You just refilled 2 weeks ago. Insurance won't cover another batch. I'll pay cash. Mrs. Mercer, missing doses is dangerous. If you're having trouble remembering, I cut her off and said someone had been switching them, replacing them with candy. But even as the words left my mouth, I heard how they sounded: paranoid and confused. Keisha's expression shifted to pity, and I knew she was going to document this interaction, making a note in my file that I'd seemed agitated. That note would become evidence later. When I got back to my car, there was a folded piece of paper under the windshield wiper. My hands trembled as I unfolded it. The message was typed in that same bold white font from TikTok captions: "Careful, Grandma. Stress is bad for your heart," followed by a heart emoji. I got home to find Sloan in the kitchen, filming herself making breakfast. She greeted me cheerfully and asked where I'd gone so early. "Pharmacy," I said. She glanced at me then, eyes sharp. Was I feeling okay? The concern was perfect, camera ready. "Good," she said, "because Bianca wanted to do that family dinner video tonight. She needed me to look good. Maybe wear that blue sweater?" I went to my room and locked the door. I pulled out the new medication bottle and counted the pills, 30 of them. I took a photo of the bottle, noting the count. Then I hid it inside a tampon box in my bathroom cabinet. Sloan wouldn't look there. But when I turned around, something caught my eye: the smoke detector in the corner of my bedroom ceiling. Kent had promised to fix it months ago, said it was broken. Except now, standing in the afternoon light, I could see a tiny red gleam inside the casing. I dragged my desk chair across the room, climbed up, and unscrewed the smoke detector. My fingers fumbled with the plastic casing, and when it finally came apart, I nearly fell off the chair. Inside, nestled where the batteries should be, was a camera. Tiny, wireless, and professional grade. The lens was pointed directly at my bed, and the little red light was still blinking. How long had it been there? 6 months? I thought about every time I'd changed clothes in this room, every time I'd gotten out of the shower and walked to my dresser in just a towel. All of it filmed, all of it watched. That's when I heard the front door open downstairs. Voices drifted up, Sloane's laugh, followed by Bianca saying something about getting good footage. They were home, and I was standing on a chair holding evidence of their surveillance. I scrambled down, shoved the camera into my pocket, and walked straight to Sloane's room. She was still in the kitchen, narrating her breakfast routine. Her room was a shrine to social media success. And there, on her desk, were multiple monitors showing live feeds. One of them was my bedroom. The other monitors showed the bathroom, the hallway, and the living room, my entire existence under surveillance. I took photos of everything with my phone. A voice behind me asked what I was doing. I spun around. Sloane stood in the doorway, no longer smiling. I held up the smoke detector. "There was a camera in here," I said. "Yeah," she said casually. "For your safety, Kent and Bianca installed them after I moved in case you fell." "This is pointed at my bed," I said. "Well, yeah, that's where I'd fall if I had a heart attack at night," she replied so reasonably. She suggested that maybe we should talk to Bianca about getting me checked out for memory care, tapping her temple. She was gaslighting me right to my face. I left her room without another word, but I took the camera with me. That night, family dinner was a performance. Bianca had made my lasagna recipe and served it like she'd invented it herself, while Sloane set up ring lights around the dining room table. Kent poured wine and told me to relax, to just be myself, but the way he said it felt like a warning. "Ready, everyone? Remember, natural, warm, family vibes. 3, 2, 1. The camera's red light blinked on, and everyone's faces transformed. Kent became the devoted son, Bianca the loving daughter-in-law, Sloane the grateful granddaughter, and I became the prop. "Tell them about how hard you worked to give me everything," Kent said. So I told the story. I talked about working multiple shifts after Russell died, about sacrificing everything so he could have opportunities I never had. And as I spoke, I watched Sloane's face behind the camera, calculating which parts to keep and which to cut. When I mentioned giving Kent $30,000 for the down payment on this house, Sloan stopped recording. That was good, Grandma, but maybe less specific about money. It's kind of tacky. We did 7 more takes. Each time I became smaller, simpler, and less real. Afterwards, I went to my room, locked the door behind me, then immediately checked my medication bottle. 28 pills. I'd taken 2 that day. Except when I pulled up the photo I'd taken this morning, the count was 30. Someone had been in my room while we were downstairs filming. Someone had found my hiding spot and taken 2 pills to mess with the count, to make me doubt myself. That's when I opened TikTok and saw that Sloan had already posted the dinner video. The caption read, "Blessed to have 3 generations under one roof," followed by a house emoji, then a heart emoji. Family first. But one comment made my blood freeze. Check out the bathroom. New camera angle is lit. I ran to my bathroom and found it immediately inside the air freshener on the counter. The camera lens was hidden behind the decorative holes, pointed directly at the shower. They'd been filming me bathing. I found 3 more cameras in the next 10 minutes, one in the lamp, one between books, and one in the closet. My entire room was a studio. I heard footsteps outside my door, then voices, Kent and Bianca whispering. Knows too much. Medication should have worked by now. Need to move faster before she. I collected all of them, 7 cameras total, and lined them up on my bed like evidence. My hands were still shaking when my phone buzzed with a text from a blocked number. Put them back, or we'll tell everyone you're stealing from us. We have footage of you going through Sloan's room. Maybe you're not as innocent as you think. Another text. Family meeting tomorrow, 10 a.m. We need to talk about your behavior. And a third. Dr. Westbrook will be joining us. He's very concerned about your recent paranoid delusions. Dr. Westbrook, the name from the fake medical records. They weren't just threatening me anymore. They were moving to the next phase, bringing in their paid expert to declare me incompetent. I heard a car pull into the driveway, then another. Then voices downstairs, multiple voices, professional voices discussing logistics. It seems the family meeting was no longer tomorrow at 10 a.m. It was happening right now. I stood at the top of the stairs, listening to the voices below multiply. Kent's voice rose above the others, saying I'd been showing signs for months. A woman's voice responded with clinical terminology, cognitive decline, paranoid delusions, danger to self and others. They were building the narrative in real time. I had maybe 5 minutes before they started up those stairs. But they'd made one critical mistake. They thought I was helpless. I grabbed my phone, the cameras I'd collected, and the medication bottles, then did something they'd never expect from a 67-year-old woman with a bad knee. I opened my bedroom window. The drop to the hydrangeas below was only about 8 feet. The first floor roof overhang offered a small ledge, but there was no trellis, no ladder, and no easy way down. I didn't climb. I fell. I swung my legs over the sill, my bad knee screaming in protest, and lowered myself until I was hanging by my fingertips from the gutter. I hung there for a terrifying second, suspended in the darkness, before my grip gave out. I hit the bushes hard. Branches scratched my face and snagged my clothes, and I landed on my side in the mulch with a thud that knocked the wind out of me. Pain shot up my leg, a twisted ankle, maybe worse, but the adrenaline surged, masking the injury. I scrambled out of the bushes, limping and gasping, looking like exactly what I was, a desperate woman fleeing for her life. I was in my car and 3 blocks away before I heard my phone start buzzing with calls from Kent, from Bianca, from numbers I didn't recognize. I didn't answer any of them. I drove through the dark Virginia streets, past the Potomac Overlook, where Russell had proposed to me 45 years ago, until I reached the one place I thought might still offer sanctuary, the senior center. I pulled into the parking lot at 8:15 p.m., and my heart sank. The building was dark. The blinds were drawn, and the open sign in the window had been flipped to closed. I ran to the glass doors and pulled on the handle, rattling it against the frame, but it was locked tight. I pressed my face against the cold glass, looking for a janitor, a security guard, anyone, but there was only darkness inside. I slumped against the brick wall, sliding down until I hit the concrete. I had nowhere to go. No money I could access without alerting Kent, and no friends I hadn't been isolated from. I got back in my car and drove to the 24-hour Walmart 3 towns over, far enough that I hoped Kent wouldn't think to look there. I parked under a flickering light, locked the doors, and curled up in the back seat with my coat over my head. I was 67 years old. I had worked my whole life. I had raised a family, and now I was homeless, hiding in a parking lot, and waiting for the sun to rise so I could find someone who believed me. The senior center opened at 7 a.m. I was waiting at the door at 6:45. When Iris, the program director, arrived to unlock the building, she nearly tripped over me. I must have looked like a ghost. Wrinkled clothes, red eyes, shaking from the morning chill and the caffeine withdrawal. "Diana?" she asked, dropping her keys. "My God, what happened?" "They're coming for me," I whispered, and my voice broke on the words. "They're going to have me declared incompetent. They're going to lock me away, and I don't know how to stop them." Iris didn't ask questions. She didn't ask why I was there so early. She unlocked the door, pulled me inside, and locked it behind us. She led me to her office, sat me down, and poured me a cup of hot coffee. "Tell me," she said. I told her everything. I showed her the photos of the cameras, the fake pills, and the TikTok account. Iris looked at the evidence. Her face went hard. She reached across the desk and took my hand. "We're going to get you a lawyer," she said, "and we're going to get you safe." "They have money," I said. "They have lawyers, and they have millions of followers." Iris squeezed my hand. "And you have us." She picked up her phone. "We fight," and then led me out of her office and into the main community room. It smelled of stale coffee and old paperbacks, a scent that used to remind me of bridge games, but now felt like a war room. I took a seat in the back where a group was gathering for the digital literacy for seniors class and tried to look normal, like Diana Mercer, retired nurse, grandmother, and hobby gardener. But my hands wouldn't stop shaking, and I kept watching the glass doors, expecting Kent to walk through at any moment with police officers or doctors or whoever he'd convinced to help him drag me back to that house. A young volunteer stood at the front of the room. She couldn't have been older than 25, with kind eyes and a patient smile that reminded me of what Sloan used to look like before the internet ate her soul. She was explaining how to spot online scams, how to protect your passwords, how to recognize when a prince in an email was actually a hacker in a basement. "Scammers target older adults because they think you're polite," she explained, writing on a whiteboard. "Repeat after me, exactly everything the way you pasted it, unchanged, uninterrupted, verbatim. They think you won't want to make a scene, and they count on you doubting your own understanding of technology. Doubt. That was the weapon. But you're smarter than they think you are," she said, scanning the room. "If something feels wrong, trust your gut." I raised my hand before I could stop myself. My voice came out smaller than I intended, brittle and cracked. What if it's not strangers? What if it's family members using the technology? The room went silent. The scratching of pens on notepads stopped. A few people shifted uncomfortably in their plastic chairs. I saw one woman in the front row suddenly become very interested in her handbag, like I'd just voiced something she'd been thinking about in the dark for years, but was too afraid to say out loud. The volunteer's expression shifted. The polite customer service smile dropped, replaced by a sharp, concerned focus. "That's called elder abuse," she said, her voice steady, "and it happens more than people realize. It's often financial, but digital exploitation is becoming common. I looked around the room, trying to gauge who might be safe to trust. I felt like a spy in my own life. Was that man in the corner watching me? Was the receptionist looking at her phone because she was texting Kent? Paranoia, Dr. Westbrook would call it. Survival, I corrected myself. Then I saw a woman across the circle, maybe 70, with steel gray hair cut into a sharp bob and eyes that looked like they had seen wars. She gave me the smallest nod, just a dip of the chin. It said, "I know. I see you." That nod gave me the courage to stand up. I walked to the front of the room with hands that trembled so badly I nearly dropped my phone. I showed the volunteer the photos of the cameras. I showed her the screenshot of the TikTok account, and I showed her the fake pills. The volunteer's face went pale. This is illegal. In Virginia, recording someone in a private space like a bedroom or bathroom without consent is a felony. She looked up at me. "We have a social worker on staff. I'm going to get her, right now." 15 minutes later, I was sitting in a small, windowless office across from a woman named Vanessa. Vanessa looked like she hadn't slept in a decade. She was in her 40s, wearing a cardigan that had seen better days, and she moved with the exhausted efficiency of someone who spent her life cleaning up other people's tragedies. She didn't offer me tea or sympathy. She just offered me a chair and asked to see the evidence. She looked through every photo on my phone with methodical, surgical attention. She zoomed in on the smoke detector camera, read the captions on Sloane's videos, and counted the pills in the photo of the bottle. Then she let out a sigh so heavy I thought the desk might collapse under the weight of it. "This is textbook," she said, rubbing her temples. "Digital exploitation, gaslighting, and medical tampering. But there's a problem." My chest tightened, with a familiar band of panic constricting my ribs. "What problem?" "It's hard to prosecute when you're living in their home," Vanessa said, her voice blunt. "They'll say the cameras were for your safety because you're a fall risk. They'll say the videos were family bonding and that you consented. And they'll say the medication mix-up was your own confusion and not their malice." I started to protest, but she held up a hand. "I believe you, Mrs. Mercer. Let me be clear. I believe you are being abused. But belief isn't the same as proof that holds up in court against a wealthy family with good lawyers. We need a paper trail. We need independent verification." She leaned forward, her eyes locking onto mine. "Why are they doing this? Abuse usually has a motor. Is it just for the TikTok views?" "The views make money," I said. "Sloane has sponsors." "But," I hesitated. "Kent has been talking about finances a lot. He has gambling debts. Bianca's boutique is failing. Do you have assets?" "I gave them the money for the house. I have a small pension. And..." I stopped. The realization hit me like a physical blow. "The life insurance." Vanessa went still. "How much?" $200,000. It's a policy Russell, my late husband, took out in the 80s. I never updated the beneficiary after he died. It goes to my estate. "And who is the executor of your estate?" "Kent." The silence in the room was deafening. The hum of the refrigerator in the corner sounded like a chainsaw. "Mrs. Mercer," Vanessa said, her voice dropping to a whisper, "if you are worth $200,000 dead, and your living expenses are costing them money, and they are already tampering with your heart medication." She didn't have to finish the sentence. The math was simple. I was a liability alive, but a lottery ticket dead. "You need to change that beneficiary," she said urgently. "Today, right now. And you need to move any money you have access to somewhere he can't reach it. If they find out you're doing this, things will escalate. They will stop playing games." Through the window behind Vanessa, a small rectangle of glass looking out onto the parking lot, I saw a car pull in. It was a charcoal Lincoln Corolla, tinted windows, late model. It was the same car that had followed me to the pharmacy. My heart hammered against my ribs. "That car," I whispered, pointing a shaking finger. That car followed me yesterday. Vanessa turned. She watched the Lincoln circle the lot once, slowly, like a shark patrolling a reef. The driver didn't park. They just idled near my Honda, waiting. Do you recognize the driver? No, but they know my car. Vanessa stood up and closed the blinds with a sharp snap. We're leaving through the back door. You need a lawyer, and you need to get your assets secured. Do not go back to your car right now. I left the senior center through the kitchen exit, smelling of dish soap and fear. Vanessa walked me to her car, a battered Subaru full of case files and empty coffee cups. She drove me 3 blocks away to where I could catch a cab, creating a gap between me and the predator waiting in the parking lot. Call this number, she said, handing me a card for an attorney named Porter Flynn. He specializes in elder law. He's not expensive, but he's mean. You need mean right now. Thank you, I said, clutching the card like a lifeline. Mrs. Mercer, she said, gripping my arm before I could get out. Don't go back to that house alone, ever. If you go back, bring the police. I took a cab to my car, which I realized I had to retrieve eventually if I wanted to escape, and approached it from the neighboring lot, watching for 20 minutes to make sure the Corolla was gone. It was. But the feeling of being watched, of crosshairs painted on my back, didn't leave. I drove to the bank first. Every red light felt like a trap. Every car in my rearview mirror looked like Kent's SUV. I kept checking my phone. No texts, no calls. The silence was worse than the threats. It meant they were planning. The bank took 45 minutes. The manager, a young man named David, who looked at me with the same concerned pity I was starting to hate, helped me open a new account solely in my name. I transferred my pension and the small savings I had left. And the life insurance, I said, my voice steady for the first time that day. I need to change the beneficiary. Of course. Who would you like to name? I thought about it. I thought about Kent, the little boy I had carried on my hip, the teenager I had taught to drive, and the man who was currently replacing my pills with candy. The Elder Abuse Prevention Fund of Virginia, I said. David looked up, surprised. The whole amount? Every penny, I said. If I die, I want my money to fight people like my son. I want him to know that his greed didn't just fail. It funded his own destruction. When I walked out of the bank, I felt lighter. I had just cut the financial cord. I had removed the incentive for my murder. But I knew that when Kent found out, and he would find out, likely within days when the insurance company sent the confirmation letter to the house, his greed would turn to pure, unadulterated rage. I drove to the address on Porter Flynn's card. It was a strip mall office between a nail salon and a tax prep service. Not prestigious, perfect. Porter Flynn was 60-something, with silver hair, a suit that had been fashionable in the 90s, and eyes that assessed me like I was a puzzle he was already solving. Repeat after me, exactly everything the way you pasted it. Unchanged, uninterrupted, verbatim. His office smelled of old coffee and justice. I told him everything. I showed him the evidence. Vanessa had called ahead, so he didn't waste time asking if I was confused. This is going to be ugly, he said, leaning back in a chair that groaned under his weight. They've been building a case against you for months, Diana. The videos aren't just for money. They're documentation. They're creating a public record of your decline so that when they make a move for guardianship, they have millions of witnesses. Guardianship? Conservatorship. Like Britney Spears, but for grandmas. If they get it, you lose everything. Your money, your right to make medical decisions, and your freedom. They can lock you in a facility and charge your estate for the privilege. My blood ran cold. That was the end game. Not just death, but total control. I need to get my things, I said. My nursing bag, my real documents, my mother's jewelry. You can't go back there. I have to. If I leave those things, they'll destroy them or sell them. Porter sighed. He picked up his phone. I'm calling the precinct. We're getting you a civil standby. You go in, you get your essentials, and you get out. 10 minutes. Do not engage with them. Do not let them bait you. Officer Morrison met me at the end of the driveway an hour later. He was young, polite, and clearly thought this was a domestic dispute over who kept the toaster. He didn't understand that he was walking into a crime scene. "Just grab what you need, ma'am," he said. "Keep it civil." I pulled into the driveway. Kent's car was there, Bianca's was there, and parked on the street, brazen and terrifying, was the charcoal Lincoln. My stomach twisted. They were all home. They were waiting. I walked up the front steps, Officer Morrison trailing behind me. I unlocked the door. My key still worked, which surprised me, and pushed it open. The house was silent. "Hello?" I called out. No answer. I walked through the foyer, past the living room where the ring lights were set up like silent sentinels. I climbed the stairs, my knees still protesting, and my heart hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I went straight to my room. The door was open. I stepped inside and stopped dead. It was empty. Not just tidy, empty. My clothes were gone from the closet. My dresser was bare. The photos of Russell I kept on the nightstand were missing. The bed was stripped to the mattress. My books, my sewing machine, the rug I had brought from my old house, all of it gone. It was as if I had never lived there. "Where is it?" I whispered. "Where is my life?" "Mrs. Mercer?" Officer Morrison said from the doorway, looking around the barren room. "Are you sure this is your room?" "Of course it's my room," I snapped, panic rising in my throat. They took everything. They packed me up. I spun around and saw them. They were standing at the end of the hallway, a terrifying tableau of family. Kent, arms crossed, leaning against the wall, Bianca looking at her nails, and Sloane holding her phone up, the red recording light blinking. "We didn't take anything," Kent said smoothly. His voice was calm and reasonable, the voice of a man talking to a confused child. "Mom, you packed these things yourself yesterday. Don't you remember? You said you were leaving." "Liar," I breathed. "I ran for my life yesterday. See?" Bianca said to the officer, shaking her head sadly. "The paranoia. She forgets what she does from 1 hour to the next." Sloane stepped closer, the camera zooming in on my shaking hands. "It's okay, Grandma. We put your boxes in the garage for you, since you wanted to go." They were gaslighting me in front of the police, and they were doing it perfectly. "I want my things," I said, my voice trembling with rage. "And I want you to stop filming me." "It's my house, Mom," Kent said. "And actually," he reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. He handed it to Officer Morrison, not me. "This is an eviction notice," Kent said. 30 days notice was given last month. Today is the deadline. She's trespassing." Officer Morrison looked at the paper. "This is dated 30 days ago." "I never saw that," I shouted. "He never gave me that." "She threw it away," Bianca chimed in, "just like she throws away her medication." I looked at the officer. He was looking at the paper, then at the empty room, then at me. I could see the calculation happening in his eyes. Rich family, nice house, calm son, versus a shaking, screaming old woman. "Ma'am," Officer Morrison said gently, "if this is a valid eviction notice." "It's forged," I screamed. "They are lying." "Grandma, please stop screaming," Sloane whimpered, shrinking behind her phone. "You're scaring me." It was a masterclass in manipulation. "I'm getting my bag," I said, shoving past Officer Morrison. I ran to the closet, empty. I ran to the bathroom, empty. Then I remembered. The loose floorboard under the window, the hiding spot I used to use for Christmas presents when Kent was a boy, the one habit I had kept. I dropped to my knees, ignoring the pain, and pried up the board. It was there, my old nursing bag. The leather was cracked, the handle worn, but it was there. Inside were my licenses, my birth certificate, and the small notebook where I had started documenting the abuse 2 weeks ago. "Got it," I whispered. "What is she doing?" Bianca asked sharply. "Is she tearing up the floor?" I stood up, clutching the bag to my chest like a shield. "I'm leaving, and I'm never coming back." I walked past them. I forced myself to look at Kent. I changed the beneficiary, I said quietly. Kent's face didn't move, but his eyes went dead. The mask slipped for a fraction of a second, revealing the predator underneath. You're making a mistake, Mom, he whispered, low enough that the officer couldn't hear. You don't have the money to fight us. You don't have the mind to fight us. Watch me, I said. I walked down the stairs, out the door, and into the driveway. As I reached my car, Sloan called out from the porch, Bye, Grandma! Don't forget to subscribe. I slammed the car door and drove. I didn't look back. I couldn't. If I looked back, I would have turned the car around and driven it through the living room window. I drove straight to the shelter Porter had arranged. It was a nondescript building in an industrial part of town, with barred windows and a heavy steel door. I buzzed the intercom. Diana Mercer, I said. Porter Flynn sent me. The buzzer sounded, a harsh, metallic rasp. I walked inside. The intake process was dehumanizing in a way I hadn't expected. I had to surrender my phone for a security check. I had to be searched for weapons. I had to give a fake name for the roster. You'll be in room 4, the worker said. She was kind, but she was busy. Dinner is at 6. Lights out at 10. No visitors. No telling anyone where you are. Room 4 was a box. Cinder block walls painted a cheerful, peeling yellow. 2 bunk beds. A metal locker. It smelled of industrial disinfectant and other women's despair. I sat on the lower bunk. The mattress was thin, covered in plastic that crinkled when I moved. I set my nursing bag on the floor. I was 67 years old. I had worked for 35 years, owned a home, raised a son, and been a person who mattered. Now, I was a homeless woman in a shelter with nothing but a bag of paperwork and a son who wanted me dead. I pulled out the notebook from my bag and opened it to the first blank page. My hands were shaking, but I forced them to steady. Day 1 of freedom, I had written before I broke down. I curled up on that plastic-covered mattress and sobbed. I didn't cry for the house. I didn't cry for the money. I cried for the little boy with the scraped knees I used to bandage. I cried for the teenager I taught to drive. And I cried for the man who had stood in the hallway and watched me with dead eyes. I grieved him because the son I loved was dead. The man in that house was a monster wearing his face. But as the tears dried, leaving my face tight and salty, a new feeling settled in my chest. It was cold, it was heavy, and it was solid. It was the realization that I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was now a witness. Repeat after me, exactly everything the way you pasted it, unchanged, uninterrupted, verbatim. And tomorrow, the witness was going to start talking. My phone, which I had just gotten back from the security check, buzzed. I stared at it. A notification from TikTok. Sloan Savage just posted a video. I shouldn't look. I knew I shouldn't look. I clicked it. The video opened. It was footage from 10 minutes ago. Me screaming at the officer. Me ripping up the floorboard, and me looking deranged and disheveled. The caption read, Update, Grandma came back and had a total meltdown. Police had to intervene. We are so heartbroken. This was followed by a broken heart emoji, hashtag dementia, hashtag mental health, and hashtag family crisis. 1.5 million views in 20 minutes. I watched the comments roll in. She looks dangerous. You guys are saints for putting up with this. Put her in a home before she hurts someone. They were winning the narrative. They were painting me as the villain in my own tragedy. I turned off the phone and lay back in the dark. Okay, I whispered to the empty room. You want a show? I'll give you a show. I wasn't going to fight them on TikTok. I was going to fight them in a court of law. And I was going to make sure that when the truth came out, those 2.3 million followers saw exactly what kind of monsters they had been cheering for. I closed my eyes, but I didn't sleep. I planned. The shelter woke at 6 a.m. to the sound of crying. Not mine, though I'd done my share of that through the night. It was the woman in the bunk above me, sobbing softly into her pillow. I listened to her rhythmic, stifled gasps and understood that we were all refugees here, all fleeing from people who had promised to love us, all trying to survive just one more day. I had slept maybe 2 hours, jerking awake at every creak of the building, every footstep in the hallway, convinced Kent had found me, and convinced the charcoal Lincoln was idling outside. But morning came without incident, just gray light filtering through the barred window and the smell of industrial coffee wafting from the communal kitchen. At 7 a.m., I met with the shelter's legal advocate, a woman named Teresa. She was sharp, efficient, and had eyes that didn't flinch at horror stories. She sat with me in the small intake room, reviewing the file Porter had sent over. She laid out the timeline, and it was brutal. Restraining order hearing is this afternoon at 2, she said, tapping the schedule. That means you'll have to face Kent in court. Porter is filing the criminal complaint this morning, which means the police could theoretically issue arrest warrants for Kent, Bianca, and Sloan within 48 hours. But you need to give a formal statement to detectives first. Can I handle all of that in one day? I asked, rubbing my aching temples. You don't have a choice, Teresa said. Every hour you wait is an hour they have to destroy evidence, intimidate witnesses, or move money. In cases like this, speed is your only armor. I nodded. We had to move fast. We had to hit them before they saw us coming, but they had already seen us coming. At 9 a.m., I turned my phone back on to coordinate with Porter. I didn't realize it then, but that single action lit up my location on a map in Kent's living room like a beacon. It immediately exploded with notifications. The vibration was so continuous it made my hand numb. Sloan had posted a new video. I didn't want to watch it. I knew it would be poison, but I had to know what narrative I was fighting. I clicked the link. This video was different. There were no funny sound effects, no quick cuts, and no mocking captions. It was Sloan sitting on the floor of her bedroom, wearing no makeup, her eyes red-rimmed and puffy. She looked like a terrified child. Hi, guys, she whispered, her voice cracking perfectly. I didn't want to make this video, but we're desperate. My grandma is missing. My stomach dropped. She disappeared yesterday. Sloan continued, wiping a tear. She's been struggling with dementia for a while now. We tried to keep it private. We tried to protect her dignity. That's why the videos were so silly. We were just trying to find moments of joy with her. But yesterday, she had a psychotic break. She thinks we're trying to hurt her. She ran away, and we don't know where she is. She doesn't have her medication. She's confused, and she's scared, and we just want her home. The caption read, "Please help us find my grandma. She is not well. She needs immediate medical help. If you see her, please call 555-0147. With Kent's number listed. 20 million views in 3 hours. I scrolled through the comments and I felt the air leave my lungs. Oh my God, poor Sloan. I'm searching in Arlington right now. I work at a gas station in Fairfax. I'll keep an eye out. Dementia is so scary. She probably thinks the paranoia is real. Find her safe. Let's find Grandma Diana. Internet, do your thing. Sloan had weaponized her audience. She had turned 20 million strangers into a search party. She hadn't just painted me as a villain. She had painted me as a tragic and confused victim who needed to be captured for her own good. My phone started ringing. Unknown numbers. People calling to help. Is this Diana? Honey, your family loves you. Please go home. Why are you hurting that poor girl? Go back to your family. I was being hunted, not just by Kent, but by millions of well-meaning strangers who thought they were heroes. I realized with terrifying clarity that I couldn't go to the grocery store. I couldn't get gas and I couldn't walk down the street. Every person with a smartphone was a potential informant. Porter called at 10 a.m. His voice was tight with controlled anger. We have a problem, he said. I saw the video, I said. They're looking for me. It's worse than the video. Kent's lawyers filed an emergency psychiatric hold request this morning. They're using the video, the police report from yesterday's eviction, and the affidavits to claim you are an imminent danger to yourself. Affidavits? 23 of them, Porter said grimly, signed by neighbors, distant cousins, and friends of the family, all claiming they've witnessed your decline over the past 6 months. They're swearing under penalty of perjury that you've been forgetful, aggressive, and delusional. I couldn't breathe. I haven't even seen most of those people in years. It doesn't matter. They signed. Kent has been preparing this for months. While you were making lasagna, he was busy collecting signatures. He has a dossier on you, Diana. It makes you look like a woman on the brink of a complete mental collapse. Can we fight it? We can, Porter said. But the hearing on the psychiatric hold is tomorrow morning. If the judge grants it, you'll be committed for a 72-hour evaluation. And if they commit you... He didn't have to finish the sentence. If I was committed, I would lose my credibility, become the patient, and Kent would become the guardian. And once I was in the system, medicated and labeled, it would be nearly impossible to get out. Come to my office, Porter said. We need to prepare. And Diana, don't stop for anything. Don't talk to anyone. I left the shelter at 11 a.m. with Teresa's warning ringing in my ears. Kent's people are looking for you. The drive to Porter's office should have taken 20 minutes, but I took a winding route through residential neighborhoods, avoiding the main roads. I kept checking my mirrors. Every car looked suspicious. Every pedestrian looking at their phone seemed to be comparing my face to Sloane's video. At a red light, I glanced at the car next to me. The driver was a middle-aged woman, singing along to the radio. She looked over, saw me, and her expression changed instantly. Her eyes widened. She looked down at her phone, mounted on the dashboard, likely open to TikTok, and then back at me. She pointed. She rolled down her window. Mrs. Mercer, is that you? Your granddaughter is worried sick? The light turned green. I didn't wait. I floored the accelerator, running the red light just as it changed, tires screeching. Stop, the woman yelled. I'm calling your son. I took 3 random turns, my heart hammering so hard my vision blurred, and pulled into an alley behind a dry cleaners, and sat there for 10 minutes, shaking and waiting for the police sirens. The world had become a prison without walls. I wasn't safe anywhere. I made it to Porter's office by parking 3 blocks away and walking through back alleys like a criminal. When I finally got inside, Porter took one look at my face and locked the door behind me. They're everywhere, I whispered. I know, he said. I've been getting calls from colleagues, from judges. Kent's lawyers are applying pressure. They're painting this as a medical emergency, not a legal dispute. They're saying I'm enabling a mentally ill woman to endanger herself. We worked through the afternoon and into the night. Porter, myself, and a paralegal named Frank. We organized the evidence, the unedited videos, the photos of the cameras, and the fake pills I had saved in a plastic bag. But as the hours ticked by, I could see the doubt in Porter's eyes. The evidence was strong, but the opposition was overwhelming. Kent had money, power, and a narrative that the public had already accepted. At 4 a.m., Porter rubbed his eyes and looked at me. Have you considered leaving? He asked quietly. Not just the house, not just Virginia, leaving the state entirely. Running away? Protecting yourself. If you're not here for the psychiatric hold hearing, they can't commit you. You'd buy time. Time to build a stronger case. Time to let the viral heat die down. I thought about it. Getting in my car and driving west, disappearing, becoming someone else. It felt like surrender. It felt like letting them win. Where would I go? Porter pulled out a business card. A friend of mine runs an elder advocacy program in New Mexico. It's far enough away that Kent's lawyers have no influence. She'd help you establish residency. We could fight the case from a federal level, arguing diversity jurisdiction. New Mexico, I repeated. It sounded like another planet. It's a chance, Diana. If you stay here and Judge Matthews grants that hold tomorrow, I can't guarantee I can get you out. I looked at the files on his desk. The weight of the system was crushing me. Give me until morning, I said. Let me think. I left Porter's office at 5 a.m. The city was quiet, the false peace before the sunrise. I went back to the shelter to grab the few things I had left: my nursing bag, my documents, and the clothes on my back. The plan formed in my mind as I drove. I would go. I would pack the car, withdraw the maximum cash limit from every ATM I could find, and I would drive until Virginia was a memory. I would survive. I pulled into the shelter parking lot. The sun was just starting to crest over the horizon, painting the sky in bruises of purple and orange. I got out of my car and opened the trunk to rearrange my bag. That's when I saw it, the charcoal Lincoln. It pulled into the parking lot entrance slowly, silently, cutting off the exit. It didn't park. It glided toward me. My hands froze on the trunk latch. The Corolla stopped 3 spaces away. The driver's door opened. It wasn't Kent. It wasn't Bianca. It was a woman I had never seen before. She was tall, wearing a crisp navy suit with hair pulled back in a severe bun. She carried a leather folder and moved with the terrifying calm of someone who was just doing a job. "Mrs. Mercer? Diana Mercer?" I slammed the trunk shut. "Who are you?" She stepped closer, holding out the folder. "My name is Agent Reynolds. I'm with Secure Transport Solutions. Private patient transport. Legalized kidnapping." "Stay away from me," I said, backing toward the driver's door. "Mrs. Mercer, please don't make this difficult," she said, her voice devoid of emotion. "I have a court order." She opened the folder. Inside was a document with a raised seal. "Emergency psychiatric evaluation order," she read. "Signed by Judge Matthews 1 hour ago. I'm here to escort you to Valley Springs Behavioral Health for a 72-hour involuntary commitment." The world tilted sideways. "The hearing isn't until 10 o'clock, I stammered. "My lawyer said—" "The hearing was moved to emergency session at 6 a.m., she interrupted. "Your son petitioned for immediate intervention citing imminent danger and flight risk. The judge granted it ex parte. Ex parte. Without the other party present. They had held the hearing while Porter was asleep. They had sealed my fate while I was driving back to the shelter." "I'm not going with you," I said. I reached for my car door handle. 2 more cars pulled into the lot behind the Corolla. Police cruisers. I froze. "You can come voluntarily, Mrs. Mercer," the woman said, "or I can ask the officers to assist. But either way, you are coming with me." I looked at the officers. One of them was Officer Morrison, the young man who had been at the house yesterday. He looked uncomfortable. He wouldn't look me in the eye. "Officer," I yelled, "this is a setup. My son is trying to steal my money." Officer Morrison stepped out of his cruiser. He walked over slowly. "Mrs. Mercer, I need you to go with Agent Reynolds. It's a court order. I have to enforce it." "He's lying to you," I pleaded. "Look at the evidence." "Ma'am," he said gently, reaching for my arm, "please, don't make us handcuff you." I looked around the empty parking lot. The shelter was silent. There were no witnesses this time, just the gray morning light and the trap snapping shut. I looked at my car, my Honda, my freedom, running just a few feet away. I had been so close. "Can I call my lawyer?" I asked, my voice trembling. "You'll have phone access at the facility," Agent Reynolds said, "during designated times." Designated times, supervised calls. "I need my bag," I said, "my medication. We will inventory your personal effects at the facility. Everything will be returned to you upon discharge." Discharge, as if I would ever be discharged. Agent Reynolds opened the back door of the Corolla. It had a child lock engaged. I could see the partition between the front and back seats. I got in. I didn't have a choice. As the door slammed shut, sealing me in the scent of sanitizer and despair, I watched Officer Morrison get back in his cruiser. He looked relieved. He thought he had done a good deed. He thought he had helped a confused old woman get the care she needed. The Corolla pulled out of the parking lot. I watched my Honda get smaller in the rear window, abandoned, alone. The transport woman's phone buzzed. She answered it on the car's Bluetooth system. "I have the patient," she said. "ETA 40 minutes. A man's voice responded. It wasn't Kent. It was professional, cold, and familiar. Good, the voice said. Dr. Westbrook is waiting. Start the intake process immediately. We want her medicated by noon. Dr. Westbrook, the doctor from the family meeting, the one who had been paid to declare me incompetent. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I had slipped it in there while they weren't looking. It was Porter calling. I tried to answer, to scream my location, but Agent Reynolds looked in the rearview mirror. No phones, Mrs. Mercer, she said. She snatched the phone from my hand with practiced speed and dropped it into a silver metallic pouch sitting on the passenger seat, a Faraday bag. She zipped it shut. Signal blocked, she said emotionlessly. Standard protocol for high-risk patients. You don't exist digitally until we arrive. We drove north out of the city into the Virginia countryside, where the houses grew further apart and the roads grew narrower. I watched civilization disappear. I thought about the antipsychotics they would give me, the sedatives and the chemical restraints. By noon, I would be foggy. By dinner, I would be confused. And by tomorrow, I would be exactly what they said I was. I closed my eyes and forced myself to breathe. I am Diana Mercer. I am 67 years old. I am sane. I am sane. I am sane. We turned onto a long driveway marked with a discreet brass sign, Valley Springs Behavioral Health. It didn't look like a prison. It looked like a resort. Manicured lawns, a fountain, and a beautiful brick building where wealthy families sent their problems to disappear. The car stopped. The child locks clicked. Welcome to Valley Springs, Agent Reynolds said. I stepped out of the car. The air smelled of pine needles and money. I looked up at the building and saw a face in a second-floor window. A woman looking out through the wire mesh. She pressed her hand against the glass. I walked toward the doors. I didn't fight. Fighting now would just get me sedated faster. I had to go in with my eyes open. I had to survive the nightmare from the inside. The intake room smelled of lavender and antiseptic, a floral mask over the scent of harsh chemicals. It was designed to look like a spa reception. Soft lighting, calming music, and plush chairs. But the doors had magnetic locks that clicked with a heavy final sound, and the receptionist was behind bulletproof glass. Agent Reynolds handed over my paperwork. Involuntary commitment, 72-hour hold. Dr. Westbrook is the attending. A nurse appeared. Her name tag read Denise. She was young, tired, and had the blank, professional stare of someone who stopped asking questions years ago. Mrs. Mercer, she said softly, I'm going to need your belongings, phone, purse, jewelry, and shoelaces. I want to speak to my attorney, I said. We can discuss phone privileges after your assessment. She held out a plastic bin. I put my watch in the bin and my nursing bag with the notebook inside. I watched them disappear behind the counter, stripped of my identity piece by piece, until I was just patient 4729. Dr. Westbrook is ready for you, Denise said. She led me down a hallway that transitioned abruptly from spa to clinical. The carpet became linoleum. The artwork disappeared. The doors became heavy steel with small reinforced windows. Dr. Westbrook was sitting in a consultation room, reviewing a tablet. He looked up as I entered, offering a smile that didn't reach his cold, dead eyes. Diana, he said warmly, I'm glad you're here. Your family has been frantic. My family are criminals, I said, sitting in the hard plastic chair. And so are you. He didn't flinch. He just tapped the screen of his tablet. Paranoid delusions regarding family members. Aggressive posturing, lack of insight. I am documenting this, I said. In my head, I know what you're doing. We're trying to help you, Diana. You're suffering from late-onset psychosis triggered by stress. It's treatable. He leaned forward. But you have to work with us. If you fight the treatment, we'll have to take more restrictive measures. I refuse medication. You don't have that right anymore, he said simply. The court order gives me medical proxy. He signaled to Denise. She stepped forward with a small paper cup. 3 pills, Dr. Westbrook said. Haloperidol for the psychosis, lorazepam for the anxiety, sertraline for the mood. I looked at the pills. The cocktail was designed to turn me into a zombie. Haloperidol would slow my thoughts to a crawl. Lorazepam would make me compliant. I'm not taking them. You can take them orally, Westbrook said, or we can administer an intramuscular injection. The injection acts faster, but it leaves a bruise. It's your choice. I looked at Denise. Her hand was hovering near a red button on the wall, the panic alarm. If I fought, orderlies would rush in. They would hold me down. They would inject me, and then I would lose everything. I had to stay lucid. I reached for the cup. Fine, I said. I tossed the pills into my mouth. I took a sip of water. I swallowed hard, opening my mouth to show them it was empty. Good, Westbrook said. See, that wasn't so hard. He didn't know the trick. Every nurse knew the trick. I had tucked the pills deep into the pocket of my cheek under the gum line. It burned, the bitter taste leaking out, but I held them there. Denise will show you to your room. I walked out of the office, holding the poison in my mouth. Denise led me through the unit. I saw other patients, a man pacing in circles, muttering to himself, a woman staring at a blank television screen. They were ghosts. My room was at the end of the hall, room 4729, a bed bolted to the floor, a desk with no chair, a window with wire mesh embedded in the glass. Lunch is at 12, Denise said. Group therapy is at 2. She closed the door. The lock clicked. I waited 10 seconds. Then I ran to the bathroom, no door, just a toilet visible from the hallway camera, and bent over the sink. I retched, spitting the dissolving pills into the drain. I rinsed my mouth frantically, scrubbing my tongue with my finger to get the residue off. I checked the mirror. My eyes were wild. My hair was disheveled. I looked crazy. Pull it together, Diana, I whispered. I sat on the bed. I had survived the first dose, but I couldn't fake it forever. Eventually, they would notice I wasn't sedated. Eventually, they would switch to injections. I had to find a way out. I spent the afternoon observing. The unit was a panopticon. There were cameras everywhere. The nurse's station was in the center behind glass and checks every 15 minutes. But every system has cracks. I found my crack in the form of a janitor named Leo. He was mopping the hallway during free time. He looked bored, had a key card clipped to his belt, and he had a smartphone sticking out of his back pocket. I walked up to him. "Excuse me," I said. He didn't look up. "Can't talk to patients, ma'am." "I used to be a nurse," I said. "At St. Jude's." He paused. He looked at me. "My aunt works at St. Jude's, in phlebotomy." "I worked with the phlebotomists," I said, improvising. "Hardest workers in the building." He smiled. "A crack." "I need a favor, Leo," I whispered. "I don't need to leave. I just need to send one email. One email to my lawyer. They took my phone." "I can't. I'll get fired." "My son put me here to steal my life insurance," I said. "He's paying the doctor. If I don't send this email, he wins." Leo looked at me. He looked at the camera in the corner. He looked at the nurse's station, where Denise was laughing at something on her computer. "I leave my cart in the supply closet at the end of the hall for 10 minutes during shift change," he muttered. 6 p.m. I leave my phone on the bottom tray, under the paper towels. He pushed his mop bucket away. 6 p.m. Shift change. The hours dragged. I faked swallowing my afternoon dose. Then sat in group therapy and pretended to listen to a woman talk about her cats while I watched the clock on the wall. By 5:55 p.m., the nurses were distracted with briefing the night shift. I walked casually down the hall and checked the camera angles. There was a blind spot near the linen closet. I had noticed it earlier when a patient was screaming and the nurses didn't see him immediately. I slipped into the supply closet. It smelled of bleach. Leo's cart was there. I reached to the bottom tray, lifted a stack of brown paper towels, and found the phone. It was an old Android with cracked screen and no passcode. My hands shook as I typed. To Porter Flynn. Subject help. Valley Springs Porter. It's Diana. They took me to Valley Springs. Dr. Westbrook is the attending. Forced committal. I am faking taking the meds, but I don't know how long I can hold out. They jammed my phone. Kent paid them. You have to get me out. Sent. I deleted the sent email, wiped the phone, and put it back. I slipped out of the closet just as the night nurse, a large man named Frank, turned the corner. "Mrs. Mercer?" he boomed. "Room time." "Just stretching my legs," I said. I went back to my room and lay on the bed. I had sent the distress flare. Now I had to wait. The night was torture. Every hour, a flashlight beam swept over my bed. I feigned sleep. Morning came. Day 2. Dr. Westbrook was suspicious during rounds. "You seem alert," he said, shining a penlight in my eyes. "The haloperidol usually causes some drowsiness by now." "I'm tired," I lied. "Just anxious. Maybe we need to up the dose." My heart hammered. "Or," he said, "maybe we should try the injection, just to be sure we're reaching therapeutic levels." "I'll take the pills," I said quickly. "Please, I hate needles." He watched me closely. "Fine, but if I don't see improvement by tomorrow, we switch to IM. He handed me the cup. I did the routine. Under the tongue. Swallow the water. Open mouth. He didn't leave immediately. He stood there, watching me. "Your son called," he said. "He's very worried and wants to know if you're ready to sign the voluntary guardianship papers. He says it would make this whole process easier." "Tell him to go to hell," I said. Westbrook smirked. "The agitation is persisting, definitely upping the dose." He left. I ran to the bathroom and spat out the pills. They were starting to dissolve faster. My tongue felt numb. I sat on the bed. Had Porter gotten the email? Was he coming? Or was I screaming into the void? Noon. Lunch was rubber chicken and green beans. 2 p.m. Group therapy. I was sitting in the circle when the door to the unit opened. Not a nurse, not a doctor, 2 police officers, and Porter Flynn. My heart leaped into my throat. Dr. Westbrook rushed out of his office. "You can't be back here. This is a secure unit." "I have a court order," Porter boomed, his voice echoing off the linoleum. "Habeas corpus. You are holding Mrs. Mercer illegally. She is under an emergency psychiatric hold signed by a judge," Westbrook shouted. "And that hold was just vacated by Judge Rodriguez," Porter said, thrusting a paper into Westbrook's chest. "She reviewed the evidence, including the email Mrs. Mercer sent last night detailing your threats." Westbrook froze. He looked at me. "Mrs. Mercer is to be released into my custody immediately," Porter said, "and the officers are here to seize your records. We have a warrant for medical fraud." Westbrook's face went gray. I stood up. My legs were shaky, but I stood tall. "Diana?" Porter called. "Are you okay?" I walked past Westbrook and stopped in front of him. "I didn't swallow the pills," I whispered. I walked out of the unit, walked past the nurse's station where Denise stood with her mouth open, and walked past the security guard who had taken my bag. "Give it to me," I said. He handed me the bin. I put on my watch, grabbed my nursing bag, and took my phone. I walked out the front doors of Valley Springs into the blinding Virginia sunlight. "We have to go," Porter said, guiding me to his car. "Kent knows. He's trying to get another judge to block the release." "Let him try," I said. "We're going to court," Porter said. "Right now. Judge Rodriguez wants to hear from you." "Good," I said. "I have a lot to say." The drive to the courthouse was the longest 20 minutes of my life. I sat in the passenger seat of Porter's car, clutching my nursing bag like a life preserver, and watching the Virginia landscape blur past. My hands were trembling, not from fear this time, but from the adrenaline crash of escaping a locked facility. I was free, technically, but I didn't feel free. I felt like a fugitive running toward the very people who had put a bounty on my head. "Kent knows you're out," Porter said, his eyes scanning the rearview mirror. "Westbrook called him the second we left. His team is scrambling. They'll try to get an emergency stay to stop the hearing, or they'll try to physically block us from entering the courtroom." "Can they do that?" "They can try, but Judge Rodriguez is waiting, and she doesn't like being lied to." We turned the corner toward the courthouse, and I gasped. It looked like a movie premiere for a disaster film. News vans lined the street, and satellite dishes raised like metallic sunflowers. A crowd had gathered on the steps. People holding signs, people holding phones, and people hoping to catch a glimpse of the missing TikTok grandma. Sloan had done her job well. She had turned a private family tragedy into a public spectacle. Head down, keep moving, Porter instructed. Don't answer questions, and don't look at the cameras. He pulled the car up to the side entrance, flashing his attorney badge to the bailiff guarding the gate. We slipped into the building through a service door, bypassing the circus out front, but the noise of the crowd, the chanting, the shouting, vibrated through the thick stone walls. We took the elevator to the 4th floor. The hallway was lined with bailiffs. Judge Rodriguez had locked down the floor. As we walked toward courtroom 4B, I saw them. They were standing near the water fountain, huddled with a phalanx of lawyers in expensive suits. Kent looked impeccable, wearing a navy suit that projected authority and concern. Bianca was wearing a modest cardigan, dabbing at dry eyes with a tissue. And Sloan. Sloan was leaning against the wall, holding her phone up, live streaming the hallway. She looked up as I approached, and for a split second, the mask slipped. I saw the shock, not that I was there, but that I was standing tall. Kent must have told her I was coming, but he must have promised her a drugged, shuffling zombie. She didn't expect the woman walking toward her to look like a soldier. But then the camera lens focused on me, and she transformed. Her face crumpled into performed relief. "Grandma," she cried out, her voice pitching up for the microphone. "Oh my God, you're safe! We were so worried." She rushed toward me, arms outstretched, her phone held high to capture the reunion. I stopped walking. I didn't flinch, and I didn't retreat. I just looked at her. "Don't touch me," I said. My voice was low, rasping, but it carried down the hallway like a gunshot. Sloan froze. The camera didn't waver. "Mom," Kent said, stepping forward, his voice dripping with that fake, condescending patience. "You're confused. You've been missing. We just want to take you home." "I'm not missing, Kent. I escaped." Porter stepped between us, a solid wall of black wool suit. "Step back, Mr. Mercer. Your mother is my client, and if you approach her again, I'll have you arrested for witness intimidation right here." Kent's lawyer, a slick man with a shark smile, stepped in. "Mr. Flynn, your client is the subject of an emergency medical custody order. She belongs in the hospital." "That order was vacated an hour ago," Porter snapped, "and we're here to prove why. Save your arguments for the judge." We pushed past them into the courtroom. It was packed. Despite the lockdown, reporters had managed to get seats. Neighbors were there, the ones who had signed the affidavits, looking sheepish and avoiding my gaze. And in the front row, sitting straight-backed and furious, was Vanessa, the social worker. Beside her was Iris from the senior center. And behind them, a dozen women I didn't know, older women wearing purple ribbons. The digital literacy class. They had come. I took my seat at the plaintiff's table. My hands were shaking, so I clasped them together on the scarred wood. "All rise," the bailiff bellowed. Judge Rodriguez swept in. She was a small woman with glasses perched on the end of her nose and an expression that suggested she tolerated zero nonsense. She sat down, adjusted her robes, and looked out at the packed room. "This is an emergency hearing regarding the competency and guardianship of Diana Mercer," she said. "I have reviewed the filings, the counterfilings, and the multimedia evidence submitted by Mr. Flynn." She looked directly at Sloan, who was holding her phone under the table and trying to film. "Miss Savage," the judge said, her voice like a whip crack, "if I see that phone again, I will have it seized and you will spend the night in county jail. This is a court of law, not a content farm. Is that clear?" Sloan turned pale and shoved the phone into her purse. "Clear, Your Honor," she whispered. "Good. Mr. Mercer's counsel, you have the floor. Tell me why this woman, who walked into my courtroom under her own power, needs to be locked away." Kent's lawyer stood up. He was smooth and convincing. He painted a picture of a tragedy, a beloved matriarch succumbing to the ravages of age and a family trying desperately to protect her from herself. He cited the wandering, the paranoid accusations, and the refusal of life-saving medication. Then he waved the affidavits from the neighbors. Your Honor, he concluded, his voice trembling with practiced emotion, Diana Mercer is a danger to herself. Her son only wants to save her. If she walks out of here today, she could die, and that blood will be on this court's hands. The courtroom was silent. He was good. Even I, listening to him, felt a flicker of doubt. Did I sound crazy? Did I look crazy? Mr. Flynn? The judge asked. Porter stood up. He didn't use flowery language. He didn't use emotion. Your Honor, the defense claims Mrs. Mercer is paranoid. Paranoia is the irrational belief that people are plotting against you. But as the evidence will show, it is not paranoia if they are actually plotting. Call your first witness. I call Vanessa Richardson. Vanessa took the stand. She identified herself as a licensed clinical social worker with Adult Protective Services. Miss Richardson, Porter asked, when did you first meet Diana Mercer? 3 days ago, Vanessa said. But I've been investigating her family for 3 months. The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Kent's head snapped up. Bianca gasped. Ex-Porter said, APS received an anonymous tip 3 months ago from a neighbor who noticed drones flying near Mrs. Mercer's bedroom window, Vanessa said. We opened a file, and we've been monitoring the public social media account at Sloan Savage for evidence of exploitation. She paused, looking directly at Kent. But we needed proof of financial coercion, so I took my findings to Detective Morse in the Fraud Division. Based on the drone footage and Mrs. Mercer's initial report, the police obtained a warrant for digital surveillance of the household's smart devices. And what did you find? We found that Kent Mercer accessed his mother's online banking using her passwords without her consent. We found a GPS tracker magnetically attached to the wheel well of Mrs. Mercer's Honda, which allowed them to stalk her to the shelter. We found emails between Kent and Dr. Westbrook negotiating a fee of $50,000 in exchange for a diagnosis of dementia. And we found audio recordings from the home smart speakers, Alexa and Google Home, capturing conversations between Kent and Bianca. Please play Exhibit A, Porter said. The courtroom speakers crackled. Then, Kent's voice filled the room, clear and undeniable. She's taking too long to die, Bianca. The insurance policy has a 2-year contestability clause, but that expired last week. If she dies now, we get the full $200,000. If she lives another year, the nursing home costs will eat it all. Then Bianca's voice. Just up the dosage on the fake pills. It'll look like heart failure. Dr. Westbrook will sign the certificate. The silence in the courtroom was absolute. It was a vacuum. I looked at Kent. He wasn't looking at the jury. He wasn't looking at the judge. He was staring at the table, his face draining of color, the mask of the loving son shattering into 1,000 pieces. Bianca was shaking, her hand over her mouth. Sloan was staring at her parents with a look of pure horror. Not because of what they did, I realized, but because they had been caught. We also have video, Vanessa continued, submitted by Mrs. Mercer herself. Footage of smoke detector cameras in her bedroom, footage of her medication being swapped. Porter turned to the judge. Your Honor, this wasn't a decline. This was a demolition. They were dismantling her mind, her health, and her finances brick by brick. I've heard enough from this witness, Judge Rodriguez said, her face hard as stone. Mrs. Mercer, please take the stand. I walked to the witness box. My legs felt heavy, but my head was clear. I swore to tell the truth. Mrs. Mercer, Porter asked, do you believe your family loves you? I looked at them, looked at the son I had nursed through fevers, the son I had taught to read, and the son I had sacrificed my own dreams for so he could have a better life. I think, I said, my voice steady, that they love what I can do for them. They loved my money for the house down payment. They loved my free babysitting. And when I ran out of money, they loved the content I provided for their social media. I took a breath. But love? I looked at Sloan. Love doesn't film you in the shower, Sloan. Love doesn't edit your confusion into a comedy reel. Love doesn't watch you die slowly so they can remodel the kitchen. I am not confused, I said to the judge. I am hurt. I am angry. And I am grieving the son I thought I had. But I am not incompetent. Cross-examination? The judge asked Kent's lawyer. The lawyer stood up. He looked at Kent, looked at the judge, and looked at the transcript of the audio recording that was still on the screen. No questions, Your Honor. He knew it was over. He was already thinking about his own liability. Judge Rodriguez didn't retreat to her chambers. She didn't call a recess. She picked up her gavel. In 20 years on the bench, she said, her voice shaking with suppressed rage, I have seen terrible things, but the calculated, cold-blooded monetization of a mother's suffering, it is depraved. She looked at Kent. The emergency psychiatric hold is vacated immediately. The petition for guardianship is denied with prejudice, meaning you can never file it again. Diana Mercer is declared fully competent. She wasn't done. I am referring this entire record to the district attorney's office. Mr. Kent Mercer and Mrs. Bianca Mercer, I am issuing a bench warrant for your arrest on charges of conspiracy to commit murder, elder abuse, and wire fraud. Dr. Westbrook, you are to be remanded into custody pending an investigation into medical malpractice and criminal negligence. She pointed the gavel at Sloan. And you, young lady, you are a minor, so I cannot charge you today. But I am ordering Child Protective Service to take you into immediate custody pending a review of your living situation. And I am issuing a court order to TikTok and Meta to permanently ban your accounts and preserve all data for criminal evidence. The gavel banged. Court is adjourned. There was pandemonium. Reporters shouted. Police officers moved in. I watched as Officer Morrison, the same officer who had escorted me to the hospital yesterday, walked up to Kent. He pulled Kent's hands behind his back. The click of the handcuffs was the loudest sound in the room. Kent looked at me. Mom, he said. Mom, please. It was a mistake. We can fix this. I didn't answer. Bianca was screaming as they cuffed her. It was his idea. I just wanted to help. I didn't want to hurt her. And Sloan was fighting the CPS worker, trying to reach for her phone, trying to post one last update. You can't do this. I have 2 million followers. You're ruining my brand. I stood there, surrounded by the women in purple ribbons, and watched my family be dismantled. Porter put his hand on my shoulder. It's over, Diana. No, I said, watching them drag Kent away. It's just starting. The criminal trials took 6 months. I didn't stay in Virginia. I couldn't. The house, my house technically, since Kent had used my money for the down payment and put my name on the deed to help his credit, was a crime scene. Porter helped me sell it. We sold it quickly, below market value, just to be rid of the ghosts. With the proceeds from the house and the life insurance policy, which I had successfully claimed, proving Russell's intent, I moved. I moved to New Mexico, to the desert, to a place where the air was dry and clean and the horizon stretched on forever. I bought a small loft in Santa Fe. It had big windows and no curtains. I didn't need to hide anymore. I flew back for the sentencing. Kent took a plea deal. Attempted murder charges were dropped in exchange for pleading guilty to aggravated elder abuse, fraud, and conspiracy. He was sentenced to 15 years in state prison. Bianca turned state's evidence against him. She got 5 years. She cried the whole time. I didn't look at her. Dr. Westbrook lost his license and was sentenced to 8 years for medical fraud and unlawful confinement. And Sloan faced a juvenile tribunal. Because of the severity of the exploitation and her lack of remorse, she was sentenced to a juvenile detention facility until she turned 21. The judge, a woman who reminded me of Judge Rodriguez, added a stipulation, a lifetime ban from managing any social media account for profit. The digital empire she had built on my pain was deleted, erased, as if it never happened. Epilogue, 6 months later. The sun sets differently in the desert. It paints the mountains in shades of red and gold, colors that feel alive. I sat on my balcony drinking tea. Real tea, not poisoned milk, not fake pills, just Earl Grey in a ceramic mug. My phone buzzed on the table. I picked it up. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't a notification from TikTok. It was an email from Iris. The subject was class schedule. Hi, Diana. The digital literacy class is fully booked for next month. We have a wait list. The ladies love your section on digital red flags. Also, are we still on for hiking on Saturday? I smiled. I had started volunteering at the local community center. I taught a class called Owning Your Narrative. I taught older women how to use smartphones, not just to look at photos of grandkids, but to protect themselves. How to check permissions, spot tracking apps, and how to document everything. I was building an army of grandmothers who refused to be victims. I walked into my kitchen to refill my tea. On the refrigerator, next to a photo of Russell, I kept one other picture. It was a screenshot. The last frame of Sloane's final video, the missing grandma plea. I kept it there to remind me. It reminded me that the people who smile at you can be holding a knife behind their back. It reminded me that family is an action, not a bloodline. But mostly, it reminded me of the woman in the video. That terrified, confused, shaking woman. She was gone. She had died in that psychiatric hospital. The woman standing in this kitchen, watching the desert sun go down, was someone else entirely. I washed my mug and locked my door, just once out of habit. I checked my phone, opened the camera app, and turned it to selfie mode. For the first time in a year, I looked at my own face on a screen. The lines were deeper and the eyes were harder, but the fear was gone. I pressed record. My name is Diana Mercer, I said to the camera. I am 68 years old. I didn't just survive my family. I defeated them. And if you are watching this and you feel like something is wrong in your house, listen to me. I posted it. My story wasn't content for someone else anymore. It was mine, and I was just getting started. You've made it to the end. You walked through the fire with Diana. But I have to be honest, it breaks my heart when I see people listen to these stories, feel these heavy emotions, and then just walk away. No subscription, no support, just silence. It feels like I'm pouring my soul into a void, working days and nights to bring these voices to life, only to be met with ghost viewers. Please, don't be another ghost. If this story kept you company, don't just take it and leave. You owe it to the story to leave a mark. A subscribe, a super thanks, or even just commenting your city. Tell me where in the world you are listening from. Let me know exactly where my voice is traveling so I know I'm not alone in this. And if you aren't ready to leave yet, don't. There are 2 more real-life journeys right here on your screen. Pick one. Stay with me a little longer. Don't let the silence win. Until next time.